tax cuts for the rich, close quote. Sounding a lot more like John Kerry than the John McCain with whom I had campaigned earlier. There are other examples. We could turn to cap and trade. Senator Lieberman and Senator McCain co-authored that bill in the last Congress. Now Senator McCain has stepped away from that. And then other actions taken. The TARP bill, the Troubled Assets Relief Program. You and I know it as the bailout of the Wall Street investment banks. $700 billion to those banks. An additional $150 billion in earmarks. Earmarks. What you hear on the radio, the scourge of John McCain's public career now, he is unalterably opposed to earmarks. There's just one problem. John called that bill an abomination, called it an obscenity, but he gave it that description the day after he voted for it. Former Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson says the reason this passed, this bailout of the Wall Street investment banks and the accompanying $150 billion in earmarks was because of one man, John McCain. Without John McCain's acquiescence, that plan would have not passed. Maybe you think that's a good thing. I don't. Now, again, to be fair, Senator McCain, and it was the outset of this campaign, and I must admit I'm not in the habit of reading the Arizona Republic. I no longer subscribe, but someone showed me the headline, McCain, I was misled on TARP. Now, wait a minute. Just to be fair, John tells us that his 28 years of experience in Washington better equip him to now represent you. In Western parlance, this ain't John's first rodeo. To say he was misled or confused, to say he was for that bill before he was against it, to blame someone else, I'm sorry, again, that sounds a lot more like John Kerry than the John McCain I used to know. There are a variety of other subjects, from Obamacare to the misguided, freedom-killing notion of so-called campaign finance reform, where our ability to utter political speech has been criminalized and marginalized, where I have a different opinion. And the new John McCain offers barely a whimper. Hollywood gave us the motion picture The 7-Year Itch. Here in Arizona, we have been treated time after time to the 6-year switch. Senator McCain comes back and campaigns among us as a conservative. But when he returns to Washington, he takes on the personality and the mindset of a maverick. Oh, and for the record, he says he's no longer that, and he never thought of himself as that. No one disrespects John McCain's service to our country, either in uniform or in a position of responsibility. But after 2 terms in the United States House and 4 terms in the United States Senate, after 28 years in Washington, it is time to say to Senator McCain, sir, thank you for your service and welcome home. We need a consistent conservative in the United States Senate. And for that, I would ask your support. And now I'm happy to open it up and let you ask your questions. Yes, ma'am.
Like you said, that it's very important, this election, and I think all of us agree that you better get it right this time. And all of us need to do our homework on any candidate we're thinking about voting for. So I did my homework on you, and so I have a couple of questions.
Fine. I'm flattered. I was the subject of her homework assignment. Just as long as it doesn't drift into the realm of what we might call opposition research. But no, go ahead. Thanks.
Anyway, when you were in Congress, you voted no on a couple of these bills, and I wanted to know why, and if I could just read them to you.
Sure.
Okay. This vote was an amend that sets monetary penalties for businesses that employ illegal aliens. And you voted no on that.
Mm-hmm. That was part of a larger bill that was introduced in December of 2005. I not only voted against that amendment, I voted against the overall bill, and let me explain why. Perhaps in doing your research, you found the opposite or the op-ed piece I wrote for the Washington Times, where I explained that this was a sucker job. This was bait and switch. The idea was to prepare for the upcoming campaign in 2006. House members could say they had voted for tough sanctions against illegal immigration. And look, I'm not telling tales out of school here. Let's understand. The Bush administration, I'm sorry to say, was an unabashed collective advocate of open borders. In fact, I had a very candid discussion with Mr. Bush aboard Air Force One on the way to Mary's hometown of Yuma in May 2006. I wrote in the Washington Times in December of 2005, "Be not deceived. The White House is looking for a legislative vehicle. They will take what the House passes, move it to the Senate, attach the Kennedy-McCain amnesty, and then pressure Republicans from agricultural states or states where there is not, as of yet, a large illegal population to take one for the home team to go ahead and vote for it." I saw the bill for what it was, and it was legislative camouflage to enact amnesty, and sure enough, they tried to do it. We exposed it, and the clock ran out toward the end of that particular session of Congress. So yes, I freely admit I voted against it because it was set up not as a standalone bill to be passed through the Senate in the same way, but as a vehicle to attach ultimately amnesty in the Senate and then lean on the then majority in Congress, the Republican majority, to pass amnesty. And I was not going to stand for that.
Then I had a second one, and this might go along with the same. It was to tighten border security and better enforce immigration laws. That also was voted no.
And do you have the date on that vote?
Yes, it was in 2005, it was 109th Congress.
Yep, that was part of the same legislative package. And again, the problem, and this is, it's almost like the scriptural admonition. You must be as wise as serpents and as innocent as doves. And I must tell you, this is why my experience there, you know the old saying, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. Now, granted, prior experience is no prerequisite. Some may look at it as a liability, but before you indict us all as being somehow liable, the fact is you go and you learn. And by that time, I understood what was truly going on, and I made it very clear to anyone who cared to inquire the reasons for my no votes. Yes, indeed. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to hear your ideas on what can be done to cut the deficit once and for all.
What can be done to cut the deficit for once and for all? You talk about experience being the best teacher. We had no sooner taken the majority in the House of Representatives than we went into a defensive crouch. You may remember, and the allegations were as absurd as they were offensive and shocking to our newfound majority sensibilities. We remember the shouts that would come up here when I served you in Congress. JD, you want to kill Grandma. You want to take away Medicare. Or what was the other? You guys want to starve school kids. And we were so shocked that we said, oh, no, that's not it at all. There are still increases in spending. We're just reducing the rate of those increases. Fellow citizens, the circumstances have grown so dire that we do not have that type of weak rhetorical defense any longer. You cannot make cuts in the rate of growth. You must make cuts first in discretionary spending, which by some estimates has increased in excess of 80% under our new president. Oh, you might be interested in the one area that they cut, border security. Don't you like to know that? So we have to go right now and stop this so-called stimulus. Freeze it in place, because true to Chicago, everything that has not been spent should be applied directly to debt relief. Number two, sadly, we have to repeal Obama. Now, here's why I say sadly. And again, it's not Senator McCain specifically, although Senators Kyle and McConnell, as the Republican leadership, gave Senator McCain the lead in debating against Obamacare just before Christmas. To be fair, John gave some great speeches, used wonderful poll-tested phrases I agreed with, but he and no other Republican senator had the guts, grit, and gumption to stand up and utter 4 words when Harry Reid brought that bill forward. And he did so, and the clerk read the title